We could come on in and find a seat. We'd sure like to get started here this evening. On behalf of Sharon and on behalf of Bob's family, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out tonight and showing your support for the family. This is not going to be a standard funeral service. I've been doing funerals for a long time, been preaching for about 40 years. I've seen this whole trend where people want to talk at funerals, and now they don't want to talk at funerals, but this was Bob's funeral. So we knew that people were going to want to talk. And so we decided that we were going to do a prayer and share. And now, for those of you who don't know, at this church we have a Celebrate Recovery. We have several folks here from our Celebrate Recovery program, which Bob was very instrumental in as we started the Celebrate Recovery program. And so we thought it would be fitting that this night, on a Tuesday night, that we had Bob's prayer and share on a night that would show some honor to him. So I'm going to start out with a word of prayer this evening. Father, we just thank you so much for your goodness. We thank you for your life. We thank you for the life of Bob Spiess, our friend and our brother, our uncle, our grandpa, great-grandpa, husband, dad. Father, you know who Bob was to each person in this room. And we thank you for having the opportunity to know him and to have him in our life. So God, tonight we want to share, and we just want to honor his life, but we also want to honor you. And so we just thank you for this time tonight, and we ask you to just bless this evening. I pray that you would bless his children, his grandchildren. I pray that you'd bless Sharon. Help just begin to heal hearts, Lord. Thank you for your goodness towards us in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to start tonight with an obituary, which is really just like taking a snapshot. It certainly doesn't cover even just a small portion of Bob's life. Robert Bob Spiess of Detroit Lakes, affectionately known around here as Uncle Bob from Celebrate Recovery, passed away on January 24th, 2023. He was born at his home, rather. Bob was born September 23rd, 1938, to William Spiess and Mamie Flame Spiess in Martin, North Dakota. After high school, Bob got his AA degree. He then joined the military, and he served in the 101st Airborne Division. Following his service to our country, he worked for the United States Postal Service for 35 years as a mail carrier, then as postmaster in Sunburg and in Felton, Minnesota, and then as a drug and alcohol counselor for the United States Postal Service. Just an interruption there. That was a very proud part of Bob's life, that he was able to serve people who were struggling with drugs and alcohol in the Postal Service. So he spoke of that often. Bob had 3 children over the course of his first marriage, Julie, Beth, and Jill. In 1965, Bob married again to Faye Erickson. Together they had a daughter, Shannon, 4 sons, Robbie, Keenan, Jason, and Ryan. In 1999, Bob married Sharon Summers. Bob was known for his kindness and his generous heart, for his love of fishing, for his dedication and knowledge of fishing was only second to his love for Jesus Christ. He was on occasion able to combine his passions, sharing God with people out on the lake. All of those people in the boat had a full net and a full heart. Bob was a skilled listener and an excellent conversationalist, but he will be remembered most for his heart towards the disadvantaged. For over 20 years of his Army, Bob was also involved in many recovery programs in Fargo, and this continued when they moved to Detroit Lakes. Bob was a facilitator at the Celebrate Recovery here at this church. He was involved in jail ministries, and he was a sponsor for many people in AA. He thoroughly enjoyed attending Christian Fellowship Church, including our men's Bible study on Thursday morning. Again, I'm just going to interrupt here. Bob had a commentary that either got ran over by a truck or that he used an awful lot. Okay? because he had a commentary that he would bring to Thursday morning men's group. And before he would be able to comment on a passage of Scripture, he'd have to take the rubber bands off of it, because that's how much he used it. It's a biblical commentary, and he'd read along. I got something here, and he'd have to take the rubber bands off of his Bible commentary. So it brings great joy to my heart. Bob's tender heart was used by God to change lives and to bring hope to people that had none. He's survived by his wife Sharon, his children Julie and Mark, Jill and Al, Rob and Jackie, Keenan and Deb and Jason, my stepchildren, Lisa Jaskins, Ben Peterson, Michael and Joy Summers, many grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. Bob was preceded in death by his parents, by his brothers William, Donald, Howard, and Edward, by his sisters Helen Ishler and Betty Pago, his wife Faye and infant daughter Shannon, by his daughter Beth, his son Ryan, his stepdaughter Gina, and grandson Jude. And as I said, an obituary is just such a quick snapshot of a person's life. One old preacher said it this way. He said, "No man can preach anyone else's funeral. We all preach our own funeral by the way that we live our life." And Bob would have told you that for the first 30 or 35 years of his life, he preached a pretty sketchy funeral. He knew that he had some hard times in there. And the truth of the matter is, he owned that. In conversation with Bob, he owned that. He knew that the first 30, 40 years were kind of rough. But some 45 years ago, something changed for Bob. And as I understand, it happened with a program called AA. Now, I'm sure that there are some in this room that knew Bob before AA, before he met Christ. But like most of us in this room, there's a whole bunch of stuff that he really wasn't very proud of. But there should be a picture up here somewhere of the day that he received his 45-year medallion for AA. That was the day that he was 45 years he was sober. That's a big deal, guys. That's a big deal. Let me read you a passage of Scripture. The Apostle Paul wrote this to the church in Corinth in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 and verse 17. Paul says this, "This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, and the new life has begun." That's what took place for Bob. It wasn't just going to an AA program, but it was finding out that there is a higher power. There's somebody greater than, and eventually Bob got to understand that greater power was Jesus Christ. And he would be very free to tell you that if you had asked. That's what we're celebrating. That's the Bob that we're celebrating tonight. That's instead of I had somebody tell me one time, it's not like a dirge, like a funeral. This should be like a funeral. Like there's a lot of life and there's a lot of joy. And Bob was that guy who just always brought a smile to my face. Look around. He brought a smile to everyone. So we want to give you an opportunity tonight to share encouraging stories, to share fun stories. And as you look around, I believe there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to share tonight. So we're going to try and limit you to 5 minutes. You might jump up 2 or 3 times and do 5 minutes 2 or 3 times. But we want to give people an opportunity to share. We'll go for an hour and a half. But our desire tonight is, first of all, to remember Bob, but secondly, to really honor the Lord. Now, we're going to start tonight and really... we're not really going to do a funeral. We're going to do a memorial service. So I've asked Mike to come and share first, mostly because Mike needs to share first and get the nerves out of the way. Come on up. Come on up. Give him a hand. And I'm going to ask you guys to come on up front and speak into a microphone. It's terrible.
Don't worry about me being up for 5 minutes. I'll be lucky to last a minute. I consider this an honor. I prayed all morning. I've been praying all week for this, get through this. I'm going to start out with the first thought that came through my head is shortly after my dad passed away, God put Bob into my life, and what a change. I mean, Bob was all about service and helping others. Everybody knows that pretty much. Me being in the tree service, there's a guy back there that can contest to that. There's always something broke down, or you always need a truck here or a truck there, and I couldn't tell you how many times Bob helped Mike get a truck over here or there, and a couple just quick ones. I bought a truck in Texas, an old pickup that needed to go to Northwood, and Bob drove that truck. It wasn't in the greatest shape all the way to Northwood, North Dakota. I said it made it. It needed a major overhaul up there. But one of the most memorable trips I had with Bob was I bought a wood processor up in Duluth, and I got to spend all day, all the way to Duluth and back with Bob. And I don't think I need to say anymore. Everybody knows Bob liked to fish, and I think that's where me and him just really hooked up. And he loved to fish offshore. The first thing I wrote down is one of Bob's favorite places to fish was Long Bridge. And if there was a kid over there fishing, he would be the first one over there to dig out his tackle box and make sure that kid was catching fish. It blew my mind, and it didn't matter if he was catching fish. He made sure he went over there and he made sure that kid was going to catch fish, and he baited the line and did whatever he could. Bob had a fish counter, so he'd go on Long Bridge, and I'd be driving by from work, and he'd say 75, so I knew he could never lie because he could count fish. You know, you could fib on how many fish he caught. Not Bob. He had a counter, and he got the counter not too long ago. So I knew Bob knew it was getting close, because he wouldn't give up that counter. Because Ryan asked for that counter for the last 3 years, and he said no, and staying with me. So he must have knew. Bob must have knew the good Lord was going to take him. Another thing I wrote down is if people were on that bridge not catching fish, he made sure that their buckets were full of fish by the time they left, because Bob could catch fish. This is a guy who probably can contest to that. And he didn't have the best equipment, you guys. I'm sitting with the best equipment ever. And anybody know what an ugly stick is? This one time we were in a boat, and my buddy Ryan was up in the front, and we were hooking into some beautiful crappies, 15 inchers, big ones. And Bob hooked into this one fish, and that ugly stick, the more he lifted, the more it bent. He couldn't get that fish in the boat, and Ryan couldn't net it because it kept going up and down, up and down. And this went on for eternity, so that's one thing I had to write down about fun stuff. This is kind of sad. Bob was like my second father after my dad passed away. I'm definitely going to miss him. I know that he's in heaven. He's looking down on all of us to just do a little. If I did 1/8 of what that guy did for service, I'd be way ahead of where I'm at right now. And I'm going to finish with this. Is Bob's favorite saying is, trust God, clean house, and help others. Thank you.
So, I know this is a tribute to Bob, so I'm sure he'd like me to start with, I'm Gary and I'm an alcoholic. Thank you. Thank you. We should speak about Bob and both his AA and his fishing. I shared both loves with him. Bob was my sponsor. I met Bob 40 years ago. I was new to AA. I decided that I'd go to some meetings and try to quit drinking. I went to a couple of meetings. I thought, whoa, you know, you got 12 steps, you got 12 traditions, you got the meaning of 12 traditions, you got the meaning of the 12 steps, you got a big book to study. I said, this is a college course. I said, I can't do this. And he did. You know, trust God, clean house, don't drink, it's over, Gary. That's all you got to do. And that's what I did. Tributes. My tribute is actually to Sharon. Sharon, thank you for taking care of the person I love. Thank you for what you've done for him. Sharon and Bob are seeing each other, and I didn't know that much about it. And he invites me out to dinner one night. He says, I'd like you to meet Sharon. And I says, oh, Sharon, your wife just died. You know, you're not supposed to be going out with Sharon and whoever that is. So I go out to dinner with him, and Sharon takes me aside. I don't know if you remember this or not, but she says to me, you know, Gary, I love him. I'm going to take care of him, and don't you worry. And that's exactly what you did. So I want to thank you, Sharon. And on a real personal note, thank you for Karen. Okay, fishing. Oh, fun. I sat and thought about Bob for a few minutes and thought, oh, I'll just write down a couple of things we did. 23 lakes, 7 rivers, and 2 reservoirs, 2 countries, and a province of Canada. Later, I had stories. You know, I'm not going to even try to touch those stories. I've got probably three things. He loved to shore fish. He loved to shore fish. We're shore fishing. He loved AA. We're in Lake Sakakawea. We're fishing salmon from shore at night. You know, we're crazy. And so we look all over Pick City and Hill City, and we find this little back bay, and we drive on this farmer's cornfield, and we walk across, and we go down this hill. The hill is so steep you can't walk it without resting on the way up. And we call it Serenity Bay. You go down there, and you're deep in a gully, and you're just serene. And so we're fishing at night. We're fishing, and pretty soon the sun starts coming up. And I fish by this pile of weeds all night long. The sun comes up, and he and I used to laugh. And when the sun first starts to get light, we'd always say, it looks like the fat lady's going to sing in a few minutes. That was our, it's getting daylight. That was our way to say it's getting daylight. And as the sun comes over and hit those pile of weeds, there it was, this big black thing comes out of the weeds. I've been standing by it all night long. And I just leave my crankbait out there, and all of a sudden it swims over, grabs a hold of it, and I just open the bail, and it just swims away with it in its mouth. And I close the bail, and this is going to be fun. 8-pound test line tied onto it. So I set the hook, and boom, I played it for 20 minutes or so. Then I see Bob about a block away. So Bob, I need some help. Come on over. Okay, and he slowly walks over. I get this fish up, and he looks at it, and he kind of, it's still got a lot of energy left. He says, you're not done yet, and he walks away. Come on, the net's right, help me. And so then I do it 15 minutes later. I finally get in this thing, going to slide it up on the sand. He comes over with a net and walks in and gets it, picks it up, and it breaks the net, so we have to pull it back in, It was the 44-inch, 26-pound northern. It's on my wall today, It was just a blast. That was one. The second one, the same bay, different year, because we fished many years together. So I'm fishing down there, and here comes Bob. He's way down a block, and he's walking towards me. And it's getting to be light, and so I see him coming, and walking, and he stops, and he's walking and stops. And what's he doing? Time to go. Comes up, I see, and he's got a fishing rod out. And then pretty soon I said, he's got a fish on. And I says, what are you doing? And he says, I'm just taking the fish for a walk. You're crazy. Anyhow, that was tremendous. One other story I'd like to share with you, and it means a lot to me too, is on Many Point. You all know that he fished Many Point a lot. Fished was opening weekend, cold, nobody was out there, windy, terrible day to fish. We were fishing, and we were in his little boat, and if you all knew his little boat, he was a 14-foot little boat, 25 horse on it, and he'd sit in the back, and I'd sit up front, and a little, kind of like a bass seat up front, and I'd fish, and he'd fish. Pretty soon he said, well, let's go in. So we started in, going across the lake as fast as a 25 horse goes. I've got all my heavy gear and my, my bibs on and rain gear and heavy boots and hunched up in the front of this boat. And I'm just hunched up, going across the lake, just going. All of a sudden, I hear an eagle. You go, ee, an eagle. So I look up for an eagle, and I just keep going. Honest to God, I fly out of the boat. It's hard to believe. I fly. I thought I sink. And I look up, and I see the hull of two boats. And I says, my God, that's what I did. We hit a boat. It's quiet down there. It's very serene. Your life, as you sink cold into water, you just, it's kind of a near-death experience. You just sink, and you look up, and you can pass through this world serenely and peacefully, and I was close to that. I had just gotten married to my second wife. I'd lost my first wife, and I thought, oh, should I just go? Or, no, I'm not going to. And so I started to swim to the surface. But that experience just taught me what it's like in life. You can pass serenely out of this world, but you can fight for it too. Bob was gone 3 days. You called me 3 days later. Go to my mailbox. A letter from Bob. It's been 3 days, and I didn't know what to do. I let it lay on my counter for 4 or 5 days. I just couldn't open it. It laid there, and what it was, what it is. It writes, it's to Gary. It says, Gary, this says it all, and it's a 40-year medallion. Life is strange, but we're all going through it. Yeah, love you all. Thank you for being here and honoring Bob.
I'd like to give you the opportunity to share. Okay. You're going to have to be quick next time.
This is quick.
This is the guy who wasn't going to take a minute.
Yeah. I had this written on my notes too. We were fishing this steep bank, super steep bank off of a shore, and the ice just went out 2 days ago. The crappies were in this bay, and everybody knows Bob's knees weren't very good, but he rolled down that hill. He literally, I said, Bob, I'll help you down. And he literally rolled down the hill. I went down to the bottom of the hill and got upset up fishing, and I ended up in the lake. And Bob says, I got to get a change of clothes. I'm pretty cold. Well, the fish, I just got one. I said, well, go ahead and keep catching them, but I got to warm up in the truck.
Thank you. My name is Pam, and actually I met Sharon first, and then I met Bob. And I have notes, and I hope I get through. I don't have many fishing stories, except for I went camping at our camp, church camp, a lot, and Bob was always the fishing teacher. And I'll never forget, I think he was like 10 or 12, this little boy who had never gone fishing. Bob took him fishing, and that little boy caught a fish, and you would have thought he had the moon. And Bob was showing everybody that little boy's picture with that fish, and I'll never forget it. He always, like somebody said, nobody left with an empty bucket. It was true, because Bob could fish like nobody I believed. I also want to say that this is my husband over here, Ugo, and I don't believe that he would be sober today without Bob. Bob and him did a lot of service. They delivered sandwiches and coffee, during the flood. They would go down to church on Sundays and set up. Also deliver gifts around this area, or no, I think down further that way. I don't know where I am. But the Yulin area, and they would deliver gifts to the nursing homes. But I also know that Bob had a wonderful sense of humor, as everybody knows, and he could make me laugh so many times. And I was telling Sharon the other day that his dressing attire, whether he was at church or fishing, was a white t-shirt, khaki shorts, and socks and Crocs. And so when I was looking through pictures, I said, Sharon, is this Bob? And he was wearing a grass skirt and a white t-shirt, khaki shorts with Crocs and socks. So it was just, it was just funny that he, him and Sharon also, I think, fed each other on their love for the Lord. And I think that Sharon really helped that. And I also know, I have to say that I never had the joy of meeting all of his children, except his stepchildren, except for Keenan. And my husband and I were talking today about him and Bob, who would go to Keenan's wrestling tournament at MSUM, and that he loved his kids. I know that. And also, he had a special place for all of his grandkids, but the one I heard a lot about was Jaden, and then it became Prince William and Eloise. They were his pride and joy. And so I talk fast, but I'm very emotional, and I start to cry, and I don't want to do that. It's going to be weird saying no, because I always say Bob and Sharon, so I'm probably forever going to say Bob and Sharon. So we were just sharing a bunch of memories when we came up here. I don't know. Even when he couldn't fish in a boat, I remember Sharon telling me that he would go fish on the shore, and it didn't matter, like somebody said, an ugly stick, it didn't matter what he had. He would catch more fish than somebody that had the state of the art. Also, it's funny because people at church always thought he had a moving company, because he would always get the Wednesday night guys to help people move. So they always thought, hey, do you know where Bob's moving company is? Yeah. You see that guy over there? And also going down to eat at the Salvation Army, and always talking to so many people, about the Lord, about AA, about staying sober. So many memories that I'm going to miss. But I'm also glad that I'm going to get to see him again,
Is this on? I'm Bob, and I'm a grateful alcoholic, and I knew Bob and Sharon probably when they moved, about the time they moved down here to town, and I knew Wilbur before, maybe a couple years before that, and then all of a sudden, I find out, well, geez, Bob's married to Wilbur's daughter, and he was in AA, so I got to see him all the time, and we did a lot of things together, off and on. We never went fishing ever, but we did a lot of other things. We went to the Salvation Army that one. Me and Michelle went with you guys that one day. There was a whole day event, and then I can remember going over to some meetings with Bob to Moorhead once in a while. And about 8 years ago, Bob, it might have been 9, 10 years ago, Bob said, well, I think you need to come over the decoy show with me and start setting up. And so we shared a table, and that was by Wilbur's table. And well, Wilbur's gone, and now Bob's gone. So now I'm in their place. And a lot of people last year came by, and well, this is Wilbur and Bob used to set up here all the time, and they used to have a big aquarium there, with all of his fish hanging in there. So this year I decided I'm going to I got a little fish bowl at home, but if I can find a big aquarium, I'm going to put one out there. And Bob gave me about a year and a half ago, I came over, he had a decoy he gave me and a jigging stick, and I said, well, I'll sell them for you, and I'll just give you the money. Oh, no, we can split it half and half. And then he said, or you can just keep them. So I think that, he knew something was going on then. And I did call him. Gosh, I called him. I hadn't called him for like a year or two. And then I called him about a week before he passed away. And he was in good moods, and then he said, well, I got to get off the phone. Sharon's coming home. I got to see how much money she spent. So and I wish I could remember the story that he used to tell me in the story about how you guys met. And it was at the Salvation Army, was it? Yeah, and he just you humbled him. That's what it was. And he was grateful. He thought you were something. So, well, thank you.
My name's Alonzo. Bob used to always call me Alfonso every time we come to Sunday church. And some of us guys, we be at the ICWA program and stuff like that, and he used to always send us letters. You know what I'm saying? Some of us don't get letters there, and I'm finna cry. But, that man, he's a good man, and some people, they need that, you know what I'm saying? And thank you, man. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
I'm Thomas. Excuse me. First time I met Bob, he was a joy to meet. The first time, I only got to talk to him maybe a handful of times, but he reminded me a lot of my grandpa because he had that quirky humor and stuff, and he just made me laugh and, tell me some funny things and stuff. And I'm really going to miss him. Thank you.
I know Bob was very dedicated to serving those that had addictions. We have a group of men that get together on Sunday morning, and anytime there was someone there that had been struggling with that was his goal, was to make them feel comfortable and help them along. And his whole ministry with writing those cards to the guys that walk through the doors on Sunday morning, he'd write their names down and be sure that they got a card that week, because they hardly ever get any mail.
Bob always carried a coin, a AA coin or a CR coin, whatever it was. And so if somebody was at a meeting for the first time, Bob would pull that coin out and he'd give it to him, and he'd say, now, I just want you to know, if you have a temptation to drink, all you have to do is take this coin and put it under your tongue. And as soon as it dissolves, you can go ahead and have a drink. If I heard it once, I heard it 300 times. He had it down.
I only knew Bob about 3 years, I guess. And I met him at the men's group and at the church out on the hill out there. Him and his wife Sharon used to put the sign up how to get there. And I just got acquainted with him. But here's what Bob would always say to me when I saw him 3 weeks ago. And when I came in his house over there, I said, "How you doing, Bob?" And he said, "Better than I deserve." That's his favorite response. And I want to tell you, he deserved everything he got, including that wife of his, Sharon. And I'm the one that's probably got better than reserved. But anyhow, he was a wonderful guy, helped a lot of people. And I carry his card. This is the one: trust God, clean house, and help others. That was his heart. That wasn't just a saying. He handed out hundreds of these cards. And I carry that, and I took it off my desk today. I have it right in front of my desk. I have it right up. The first thing I see when I sat down at my desk is that card. And everybody says, "What about Bob?" We all know what about Bob, and we'll never forget him. Thank you.
The way I met Bob is I was up at Moorhead at a roundup. This is a long, long time ago. And was roaming around there. I knew who Sharon was because her dad and I went way back. And so I saw Sharon and this guy wandering around there at this roundup. So I over there and talked to him. And here it happened to be Bob. I'd never met him before. But anyway, a few days later, for some reason, I was up in Fargo at the old Merit Care at Sanford now at the clinic. And I was wandering down the hall going from one place to the other, and I went by this waiting room, and I looked, and there Sharon and Bob sat. So I went in there and visited with him for a while. And then I hadn't saw him for a long, long time. Then all of a sudden I started seeing him at AA meetings around this area. And after that I saw a lot of him, but that's how I happened to run into him. This is quite a few years ago already. Sharon, she remembers that. But that's the connection I had. You know, I never went fishing with him or anything, but it's you know, I was surprised when I found out that Bob had passed away. You know, I didn't really, never crossed my mind, you know. But I'll never forget him, you know. And the way he could work and talk with new people in the AA program, I can't do that. I'm too crude. Too crude, too fast. That's my problem. But that's okay, too. And with that, I'll hand it back. Thank you.
I got to get up here and share before everybody shares all of his little kicks. Every time I think I'm going to share something, then somebody else shares about it. So, yeah, I look in this room and the warmth that I get because I bet you there's damn near 1,000 years of recovery in here. And I wouldn't be surprised a bit. And I guarantee that Bob's touched every person that's in recovery here in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And so when you think of a mom that has a baby, and you think of how natural her daily routine gets, if you think of a mom that's got twins, it really gets to be, you got to get a system. I have twin boys, so you learn a system. And you get that system down, and people are just like, gosh, how the heck do you do that? Well, I want to share, because I really want everybody to get this thing tonight. So if there's anything Bob would want you to have is what him and Sharon had. And I remember trying to get Bob to do something on a Sunday, or Sharon, and it wasn't going to happen because their Sundays were Salvation Army Day. And if they knew you, I guarantee you they invited you there. And when you go there and see what they do, they were like machines. They were like a mom with twins. And their day was just natural, their routine, what everything they did, all the way to the end of the day, from early in the morning until late at night. And then come Monday morning, they'd be right there, ready to, okay, what did you need and what do you want to do? And it was so natural for them. So when you hear people talk about Bob and how he could talk to newcomers and how he could greet people, it was natural. It was like clockwork for him, like back of his hand. And he got that down, and that was Bob's life. And then he had a support system back at home. And if anybody needed any hats or mittens or anything else, that woman was there. Anywhere she was. That's Sharon. And one of the years that I was at the refuge, they said, we're trying to come up with some money. Try to raise some money for the refuge. And they came up with, you guys should really try this Christmas wreath thing. And I got to tell you, talk about the machine Sharon is with knitting hats and Bob with helping people in recovery. Bob would be making trips out to the woods to get the pines, and she'd be in here showing us how to make them. And she had tables of people. She showed everybody how to do it. And we just had a system going, and Bob's like, well, we better get a truckload this time. Hey, do you think you guys could bring a truckload of them in? And we really went to town with this thing. And it was them giving themselves to others to teach. I guarantee the loving hearts and the loving spirits. So I want to make sure, I'm just, you guys, I am overwhelmed right now with the recovery I see in here. It is so awesome and so amazing, and God bless you all for taking the time to do this. But I want you to think about the message you keep hearing. Trust God, clean house, and help others, because that was their life. And I pray to God that that becomes your life too.
I'm Jill, and I'm one of Bob's daughters. And the recovery angle is important. I know why he used a cheap fishing pole, because when I was a kid, I was so scared of the fish, I'd throw them in the back in the lake. So, you know, I think he used Zebco's back then. I think that was about all he used. But my greatest memories growing up were of my dad. He was involved in the Winter Carnival. He was a Vulcan one year. I don't know if that was true, but that's what I was told. You know, where they chased people, and so he worked with wood. He worked with the wreaths. He did all the things that he did. If I wanted to hang out with my dad, I better learn to fish. And that started with taking a hose in the backyard at night with a flashlight on Lake Johanna and bringing up night crawlers. And yes, I can bait my own hook. Okay?
We should have had you earlier when we were hanging hooks up.
Yeah, absolutely. The recovery angle, I mean, there's a part of me that when I lost my sister, one of his daughters, I called a lot. When I had problems with wife number one, I called a lot. That's my mother. But most of all, he was my solid ally in recovery. And I'm going to tell a story that a lot of you might know a little bit about, but I'm going to tell you the whole story the way it happened, because I'm holding here a 17-year chip, okay? And I've been carrying this for a really long time. And it took me a long time to earn this chip, okay? A long time. And I'm going to tell you a little story about what happened to me when I got this chip. I lived in Phoenix. I was a single parent. I was new in recovery. I had 8 months sober. I was 2 months behind on my rent. My car insurance had lapsed, and needless to say, I wasn't sure about these rewards of recovery. So one night I had come home from a meeting, and my daughter, I lived in a fourplex, and it was like 10 o'clock at night, and she was listening. She was like a tween, so she's listening to the radio station. Is that me? That I couldn't stand, and I jumped up, and it was like 10:30. I said, Monica, turn that down. And she said, Mom, we should go home for the holidays. I said, what are you talking about? She said, this radio station, they're having a contest, and all you have to do is write a letter and tell them why they should pick us, and we can go see Grandpa. I said, oh my God, go to bed, go to bed. And I went back to my room, and I sat down at my computer for some reason. I began to type, and I had to rehearse this the other night because I hadn't said it in so long, but this is what I wrote. 'Twas a cool night in Phoenix, and all through the house my daughter was cranking the power, and how. I sprang from my chair to see what was the matter, to shout at my daughter to shut off that clatter, when to my amazement, what did I hear? A chance to go home for the holidays this year. Come, Monica, Wyatt, we must write a letter. It has to be good, it has to be better. My dad is retired, and money I lack. So if you buy the tickets, all we do is pack. We'll smile and we wave as we move out of sight. Merry Christmas to all, may we have a good flight. We did not win first prize, we won grand prize. And this radio station that I hated sent me to Fargo, North Dakota to spend Christmas with my dad, with the children. So back then, he asked me how much time I had, and I said 8 months. And he flinched, because I'm sure he thought it was longer. You know how that goes. And back then, you could walk somebody to the gate. And when we got to the gate, he pressed this 17-year chip into my hand, and he said, for luck. And I found out that I had a higher power, who I call God, who was going to help me in my recovery. I had an amazing support system. And, when sometimes everything just didn't seem like enough, you said about putting the chip under your mouth and trying to make it dissolve. I realized if I relapsed, I was going to have to call my dad. And that really scared. That was scarier than anything else. So eventually, I earned this chip, and I celebrated 17 years of sobriety. And you know what he did? He gave me like his 32-year chip. And I was like,
Next goal.
I don't know. No, okay, so now 45? And this one will always be my most cherished possession. I carry it everywhere. I put it in a little holder because I started using it as a worry stone, because I did make a deal with myself that before I used or drank or did any kind of really bad behavior, I don't know what my life is going to be like when I can't pick up the phone and call my dad. I can outfish any fool, Arizonan or Texan, I'm going to tell you that. And I can bait my own hook, but I will not unhook one of those leechy things, There's the hard limit there. So I do want to thank everybody for coming out. I know that recovery, it was a big part of our relationship, but there was ball games and post office picnics and drive-in movies where I don't think I remember the movie. We had blankets in the back and you just fell asleep. And but if you're lucky, you got popcorn. And going to that park in St. Paul, the Rocket. Oh, that was cool. And drinking a lot of orange candy and orange crush and grape juice. And there was always a place to fish. One time I did get yelled at because I caught a perch that was this big, but it was a northern. And it was undersized, and I should have thrown it back. But, these were all things that I had to learn. And I'm really going to miss my dad. I really am going to miss my dad.
Thank you.
Well, I got the privilege of fishing with Bob quite a bit. When I used to work at Snappy's, all my fishing buddies there I'd be talking to and stuff, and I'd say, "You meet Bob?" And they didn't know who Bob was. I said, "The guy with the clicker." "Oh, that's Bob." Yep. Everybody knew when you'd talk to him and say something with the clicker because he'd count his crappies that he'd catch. And I had the privilege of taking him fishing on Mini Point many times and stuff, and we talked about different stories through our lives, fishing and whatnot, and I told him about a couple of mine, he told me about his, and one day he was saying, yeah, the good Lord provides sometimes even the fish ain't biting. He goes, one day I was out fishing with a buddy of mine, and we were fishing and fishing, and all of a sudden there was actually a highline wire that went across the lake, and he was fishing, and here comes his partridge. Hits the thing, it falls down to his boat. The Lord provided again. He was just an amazing guy. Such a blessing to be around. And Sharon also. Appreciated you guys so much. It was unbelievable. What a pleasant, it was just awesome to be around you. And the other day when I drove by and I realized what was going on, I had to stop and say, Lord, when you get done, give him a hug and say, welcome in. I want you to tell him, give him a hug and say, thank you for being in my life.
Anybody? Mikey? Look, folks, this is why we came tonight, okay? Don't feel like this is going too long or not. This is why we came, is we want to hear these stories, so.
I'm Mikey. I've known Bob for about 1.5 years now, and I just remember the first time I ever came to this church, and I get in the van, and Scott goes, hey, there's this guy at church. He's going to send you a letter, and he really loves you. I'm like, I've never even met this guy. And I got here, and I mean, it was every week Bob made it a point to tell me how much he loved me and how much he cared about me, knowing my situation, being in recovery and stuff, and, like, my whole family loves Bob. I remember we had a breakfast here one time, and my little baby was here, and she took his cane, and she's running around like she had a horse, And Bob looks at me and goes, I guess you have to buy her a horse now. And I said, that's not happening, Bob, not right now. But through this whole time I've been here, Bob has, showed me how to love other people, how to love myself, and how to have hope when everything is looking bleak, And I know the whole time he was on hospice care, he sent me and the guys at ICWIC letters every week. And he took the time out of his day when he was really sick to make sure that, that someone cared about us and loved us, and that means a lot. So, thank you.
I don't have a fishing story. I have an opportunity that I got to serve Sharon and Bob, a few months ago. I'm not going to share that either. I'm going to let Sharon share that if she wants to. What I'm going to share is a poem that has meant many things to me over the years, and Bob fits that bill. And so does Sharon. It's called The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. That friend was Bob. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke of the following dates with tears. But he said that mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For the dash represents all the time they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard, and there are things you'd like to change. For you never know how much time is left that you can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash? The things that you guys have said so far, because I know there's so much more to share. That man has made an impact in the, 3 years, 5 years of my life, and I'm not in a recovery program. I knew him from Thursday mornings and then coming on Sunday mornings. And the opportunity to serve you two over there has beyond blessed me more than you could ever think. Thank you. Thank you, Sharon, for being a part of my life and having Bob be a part of mine also. Those 6 little words, I actually have that little card on my mirror at home, and I look at it every single morning. Trust God, clean house, help others. Helping others is how we are blessed. How we are blessed. You bless me more than I could ever bless you. Thank you.
No, I'm not going to. Pastor Tim, you're going to close with my letter, but I just have to comment on Raymond. One night we went to Barry's, where's Barry, and for Bible study. And when we came home, and I knew Bob didn't feel good that night, but he never complained. He never complained until I said, "We're going to go in." "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are." "No, you're not." "No, I'm not." And it just go back and forth and back and forth. And anyway, he said, "Oh, my phone." So he ran out to the car to see if his phone was in the car. Bob drove a regular Ford with regular controls, and it was like an older one, so he knew how to run it. Our Subaru was a little bit more complicated, and he didn't know how to run it. And so he had went in there to get his phone, turned on all the lights, and left. Came in the house, and the next morning, Bob was so sick. I knew I had to take him to the hospital. So I ran out to get the car, dead. No battery. Oh my gosh. I thought, what am I going to do? I panicked. I called Pastor Tim, and I said, I need to get Bob to the hospital right away. And he's sick. And he said, we'll be right there. And then I thought, well, geez, I could take Bob's car. By the time I went out to get Bob's car, here's Raymond. Raymond shows up at our house. And it was just a matter of a short time. I mean, I hadn't had much time. And he said, just go. And as it turned out, the car was out of gas because I hadn't gotten to the gas station. And it had a dead battery. And Raymond said, just go, go, go. So I took Bob in the car, took him to the hospital, got that taken care of, and I came home 3 hours later, and I walk in the house, and there's a note on my table that says, your car is fine, it's in the garage, and you have a full tank of gas. That's what kind of church we have here. This is the kind of people we have here. They took care of that for me. Because all I had to do is worry about Bob. And so just thank you for being here in this church, Raymond, and thank you, Pastor, for sending him, and just thank you for each and every one who loved Bob and loved upon him. He loved you. He loved all of you, and he loved this church. So just thank you for being here tonight. And Pastor Tim will say more.
The reason that all worked is because of all the seeds that Bob planted over the years. That's how that all happens, is when you serve people, people come back and serve you. When you give, people give back. That's the way that works. So I'm going to sit down now. No, I'm not.
This is awesome. Every one of you has a story. Every one of you could be up here sharing. I don't remember which came first, the chicken or the egg. Abby, where are you? Abby, there you are. Just stay there. That's fine. I can't remember whether I met you before I met your grandpa through the wrestling, because he used to go to the wrestling meets, but it seems like he was always cheering for the wrong team. But I think I met Bob first when he came to the chapel on the hill. He and Sharon came out there, and that's where we met. And somehow along the line, he got wind of the fact that I would go to the nursing homes and play the piano. And so he and Mike used to come, and they just ministered to these old folks, just visited with them and talked to them. And it was so helpful to me because I was just there by myself most of the time. But then one day he came to me and he said, you know what? It'd be nice if these people had some words to read so they could sing along with you. And so he printed up a whole bunch of sheets of songs, and we'd have those, and the people just appreciated it so much. And then a couple of weeks ago, he gave me that stack of song sheets. And tomorrow I'm taking him to the Winchester, and we're going to go use them there. So we just, I don't have a fishing story totally, but I was looking out my window one day, and Bob was fishing off my dock. And the next thing I know, there's a knock on the door, and he's got a bag full of fillets that fresh fillets. So I didn't fish, but I appreciated him doing it.
That's a great fishing story. This friend of yours. Anybody else? We'll do one or two more, and then that's going to be... Okay, got them on both sides here. That's quick.
You got to be quick to get the mic around here, I guess. Well, I guess I'd known Bob and Sharon probably for, 10, 12 years, I'm guessing, and but I didn't really get to know Bob very well until just a few years ago. He and I, we're involved in a halfway house that helps fellas when they get out of treatment or get out of jail, and help them, have a safe place to live and kind of get on their feet, get a job, whatnot. And Bob was so good to sponsor these fellas, so good, and that was so meaningful and so helpful, and that really spoke to me. And then, through the last few years, and you could see Bob was not in good shape. You could see he was hurting just to get up and down the steps. But he had such a heart for helping these guys that he toughed it out. And he really, he lived his religion. His motto, his philosophy, trust God, clean house, help others. And trusting God, well, his higher power, of course, was Jesus Christ, who is the ultimate higher power. He is the higher power. And he had accepted Christ, and that clean house part, that's get the sin out of your life. And then helping others, which we've seen him so active in doing that. And I'm going to do just a little bit of preaching here tonight. I hope, Sharon, hope you don't mind. But, have any of you had the opportunity to have a deal of a lifetime, that come by and you let it go, you let it slip between your fingers, and you missed it? Well, it's happened to me more than once. But
But ladies and gentlemen, the gift of salvation is the greatest deal of a lifetime. And Bob experienced it, and he knew what he was doing. And I encourage each and every person here today, if you haven't accepted Christ as your Savior, today is the day of salvation. There's nothing that would make Uncle Bob happier, and there's nothing that'll make God happier. For God so loved the world, that's you too, that he gave his only Son, that whosoever would believe on him, receive him, shall have everlasting life. And I know Bob loved you guys, and hopefully you have all accepted Christ. But if you haven't, today's the day. And thank you. And it's good to be here.
It's just back there.
I'm going to kind of talk to you. Okay, so I started to get to know Bob and Sharon, and I'm not through fishing, but through church and through going to prayer group and different things like that, and Celebrate Recovery. And so one day, you've seen Barry. He was the one before Scott that was up there. One day, it came across my ears that Sharon was going to go over to Barry's house, and he has a big yard, but then he has a road, and then he has a small part out by the lake. And Sharon was going to go with Bob to Barry's house to rake the yard down by the lake. And so I was leaving the house, and Shane said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going to Barry's." He goes, "What you going to do at Barry's?" I said, "Rake." He said, "Why are you going to rake?" He said, "Sharon's gonna." And he said, "You're going to rake because Sharon's gonna?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I don't want you to rake." I said, "Well, then you're going to have to come." Right? So he said, okay. So I showed up. Shane showed up. And I said, "Sharon, Shane doesn't want me to rake. He wants to rake with you." And she said, "Oh, well, you can go talk to Bob." So I said, "Yeah." So I sat down in the car with Bob. I'm so blessed to know these people, Sharon and Bob. I would not rake to miss sitting in the car visiting with Bob. It was beautiful. It went so fast, so great, so wonderful that I didn't know how long they raked, but they were done and coming over. But it was so good, we didn't care. And so then they started talking about making a meal. And it's like, oh, okay, sure. What are we going to make a meal for? We're going to make a meal for Barry. And I'm like, oh, sure. So Shane volunteered to make food, and Sharon volunteered to make food. And me and Bob said, "What can we do?" "Oh, you don't have to do nothing." Awesome. Okay. So then we go to the house, and we bring the food to Barry. And just to get, they have a great sense of humor, these guys. So we were bringing the food for Barry to thank us for raking the shore. Okay? So we get in there, and it's like, oh, that's good. So that's wonderful. So then Sharon and Bob had made a little reading, and they said, "Oh, poor Barry, you must have been really worried about how you could thank us for raking and working so hard on the shore." But in this, I'm saying Shane and Sharon, Bob and Tammy, not so much. And it's like, oh, okay. And so me and Bob started laughing because we had a great time, so we didn't care if we raked. So it didn't hurt our feelings. So we thought, okay. And then she went on to say they had wrote down, and now we're going to have this lovely meal to thank us for raking from Shane and Sharon, Bob and Tammy not so much. Okay, so me and Bob started laughing, and we sat down, and we got to enjoy the meal, and I got to thinking, wait a minute, we got to enjoy each other's company and be blessed, and then we got to enjoy the meal and be blessed with Barry that was giving us the meal that he didn't make, but it was still good. And then at the end, she said, that her and Bob said, "Are we good now?" I said, yeah, we're good now. That's how fun, funny, great it was, and I didn't even have to do anything, and I got invited. There you go.
And you got fish out of the deal? How does that happen? One more? Two more. Okay, Matt, next. Sorry.
Hello, I'm Ryan. I'm an alcoholic. I met Bob about 3 years ago. I graduated Compassion House and went to the Halfway House. I almost made it almost 5 months. I met Bob through Merrill Larson. Bob was sponsoring him. And then he was like our housemaster, our leader. And I got to be good friends with them. And Merrill was like, well, here, this is Bob. You like to fish? I said, yeah. So we hit it off right away. And then that summer, I was the bass master because I brought home the biggest bass. And Bob just loved that stuff. And but then, I stumbled and fell. And then I was missing in action for about 2.5 years. I guess I hadn't had enough bad choices. So, but then all of a sudden the good Lord brings me back, and so I made it to through Daystar Treatment Center. And then I go to the new Halfway House, and I lasted about a week. Bob started sponsoring me and bring me to meetings and gave me my 3-month coin. And then about a week later, I stumbled again, and Bob would not give up on me. And I thank the Lord for that, because today I am over 6 months sober. So in a way, Bob was like Superman. He saved my life, and I cannot repay that ever. I'm truly grateful. But while I was in Rewind Perm treatment, Bob came, he sponsored me. I called him or texted him every day for 3.5 months while I was there. And then he came and took me out fishing. I outfished this man. Well, one time in my life, but I'll never forget him. And he was just a prayer warrior. He had his biggest heart in the world on his chest, and I'm just going to live my life one day at a time, because that's what Bob said. He goes, we got this. And, with that help and that sponsorship and that love, he loved when I dressed up, because I look pretty good sometimes. And he's like, well, here, you have a new job. You're a greeter. I was like, yes, sir. Pretty much anything he said, I said, yes, sir. Because, respect your elders, and I'm learning morals, and I'm living a good life today. And this is my great family here. I love it. I love all you. Thank you.
I can tell you how you can pay Bob back. You just stick that coin under your tongue the next time that you feel like you want to drink or you want to stumble. And if you can stay sober, that's how you can pay Bob back.
Thanks, Jim. Whew. It's a lot of people here. The most memory I have with Bob is when he always laughed and smiled, everything. I think it was like a good old grandpa, like he comes by every Christmas time or anything. He was a good friend and everything to me.
We're going to wrap this up this evening, and then we've got some refreshments for you over here. I'm going to turn my other mic back on. I want to conclude with just a few things. One is some memories from Sharon. So I want to share this. Some of these have already been said, but that's just how real it was in Bob's life. If you asked Bob how he was doing, he always answered, better than I deserve. 100 times I went over to see him, and 100 times I got the same. And immediately following that, are the crappies biting? Yes, Bob was a fisherman, but he was also a follower of Jesus. Matthew chapter 4:19 says, come and follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. He was a husband, he was a father, he was an adopted father, he was a grandpa, he was an uncle, he was a sponsor, he was a friend, and on to so many. Look around the room tonight, and you'll see that he loved each and every one of you. Our Bob will be missed, tears will come, days will be different for a while, but Jesus, according to Psalms 119:76, is our comforter when sorrows come. We as family will always have this night to look back on and to remember just how much Bob was loved. So when you go to bed tonight, thank Jesus for the time that he shared, one of his very beloved, with us. Sharon says she wants to thank each and every one of you for sharing a piece of your heartfelt stories about Bob. May God bless each one of you for being here tonight. And in closing, she writes, I believe God heard. I believe Bob heard. Well done, my good and faithful servant. And now come over here so you can fish. Forever. I won't repeat trust God, clean house, and help others, because we've heard that enough tonight. But I think it would be greatly appropriate for us to finish with a serenity prayer. So if you'd stand with me tonight, and if you happen to know the serenity prayer, otherwise I will lead you in the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. God bless you. We're going to ask you to come on over and share some snacks with us and keep sharing stories. Keep sharing your love with Sharon.